So how much do you read into one exhibition result? And thanks for hopping on.
Well, I'm glad to be here. With it's good and bad, and grain of salt, and also you can read some stuff in it. I think the positives, the big takeaway is that they were able to compete with a preseason top 25 UCLA program with a very, very depleted roster, and UCLA was pressing the whole game. They just kept putting in wave after wave of sub. No one played. I think one guy played 29 minutes, and the next highest was 22. And they pressured him 40 feet. And San Diego State were limited with they're probably three main guards, or three of their four main guards were out, and Nick Boyd, Reese Waters, and Wayne McKinney, the USD transfer. And they're kind of just left with Miles Bird and with BJ Davis. And they just hung in there. And I think that's the big positive. But the other thing is you got to really keep things in perspective. I mean, UCLA wasn't playing this like a regular game. They weren't subbing like a regular game. And there were no fans there. There were no TV cameras. And so it's really hard to draw too many conclusions. But all in all, I think it was a very, very encouraging and promising scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about practice. We're talking about practice here. And, BJ Davis was the eye-popping name that when you looked at the box score, you're like 28 points, 6 for 6 from 3. Like, what's going on here? Is that something that you also like seeing it was like, whoa, that's kind of encouraging there?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously everybody they recruit, they expect to be a big time player, and most of them were very, very big time players. He played at Modesto Christian in Northern California, won a state title, played on some very good teams, and had his junior and senior year, he did something that very few people do at any level, let alone a high level of high school. But I think he shot 40% from the floor. 50% from the floor, 40% from three, and 90% from the line. And he did that 2 years in a row. He's the only guy in the history of their high school, and they've had a lot of good teams to ever do it, and he did it twice. So certainly the potential was there, but we just never really saw it last year. Now, part of that was he was playing behind the backcourt that, played in the Final Four the year before, so he wasn't going to get a lot of minutes because of that. But I also think he struggled, as many players do, with being a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a big pond, and having to sit probably for the first time in their career. And so I think that was, like anybody else, probably a little bit of a struggle and adjustment for him. And I think what this game showed us is that, he stuck with it, just like the coaches kept sort of telling him, hey, stick with it. You'll get your chance. You'll get your chance. And he took advantage of it. Now, is he going to come out and score 28 a night and average that for the rest of the year? Absolutely not. Is he going to start? Probably not. But it gives them another option off the bench, and it gives him a ton of confidence. And just one more player the Aztecs have in their system that maybe a lot of people weren't counting on, but they can now.
Mark Zeigler is with us. He covers Aztecs men's basketball for the Union-Tribune here in San Diego. So we've talked about their health. It feels like for a good amount of the offseason now. Will they be, in your estimation, and we've talked to Dutch too, but will they be, quote unquote, fully healthy for the opener, 2 weeks and a day or two away? Or how do you see it right now?
Well, it depends on how you define fully healthy.
Yeah.
Will everybody be in uniform? Possibly. They possibly could have all their scholarship guys in uniform. Will everybody be like 100% game fit and, completely comfortable with the offense and the defensive schemes and playing with each other, which is even more important? Absolutely not. I mean, they still have not had a practice where everybody's been together, and they probably won't. And they might not until the opener or right before the opener. So that's going to be the biggest struggle is, you'll see flashes like you saw obviously against UCLA, or no one saw, but we heard about from UCLA. But there'll also be some struggle moments where, everything's just not in rhythm and they're not clicking. And I think people, again, have to be really, really patient. You can't look at this result against UCLA and say, okay, well, they're going to another Sweet 16. That's a long way off. There's a lot of basketball to be played, and basketball is such a chemistry sport. When I asked Brian Dutcher if this made him feel better, the result of the scrimmage, could he sleep better at night? He said, I'll feel better when I have all my guys. And so that's what he's talking about.
What should we expect from Magan Gu this year? He had 10 points in the scrimmage. He's a kind of an unknown, not kind of, he is an unknown. What should we realistically expect from him this season?
Well, Here's the hardest thing is, I mean, I think a lot of people, if you're going to see a 7-foot guy who makes threes and expect him instantly to be the superstar, he has not played very much basketball, at least competitive basketball with referees in front of fans in 2 years, not just one. He didn't play that much his final year of high school at Veritas Prep up in LA. And the plan was for him to actually have an extra year of high school and then come out and play college basketball. And then the thought became, well, he probably should just, if he's going to redshirt anyway, he might as well do it in the college system with weightlifting and nutrition and learning a system. So that's why he came to San Diego State. But he had an ankle injury his senior year of high school and didn't play a ton and didn't play, a ton in the AAU circuit. And that's kind of how San Diego State got him. He was so far under the radar. And so when you haven't done that and all of a sudden you step on the stage and maybe you're starting at the college level and at a high level, not just the college level, there's going to be struggles. And so I think that line you saw from 10 points, that was pretty impressive against number 22 team in the country, his first sort of exposure to college basketball. He also had 8 turnovers. And so you're going to see a little bit of both, probably all through the season. And so there are going to be some really good games and there are going to be some real struggle games, and people are just going to have to live with that for this season.
Mark, you've written about San Diego State recruiting for a long time, and this current prep class, they've got a player committed, Tay Simmons, but they've also lost out on some players. I think the most recent being Chris Newuli, who's like a top 50 type player who last night announced that he chose Rutgers. I don't know if it was down to Rutgers and San Diego State or if San Diego State was among the finalists for the 6-7 wing, but what's playing out? We know what's going on in the portal. We know that money matters in the portal. You see it with the collectives, and there's huge amounts of money being thrown around. Is that same thing happening now at the prep level? Are a lot of these decisions being made about collectives and dollars like they're being made in the portal as well?
Well, yes and no. It's been really interesting. A lot of programs have gone completely away from high school recruiting. Nevada, Steve Alford's been coaching for decades. And this is the first time he's ever had a team that didn't have a true freshman on it. And he was talking about how odd that is. And a lot of coaches just have really, really deprioritized high school recruiting, because here's the problem. Since there's so much movement and kids can go anywhere they want, if you pay big money for a player and he comes in, and it's going to be hard because college basketball is getting older and older at the top levels because of the transfer portal, because of the freedom of movement, because of the money. It's going to be rare for a lot of freshmen to play big minutes and really thrive. And so you could have a guy and you really don't get the benefits of it, but you're paying him money, and then he just leaves to go somewhere else, either because he's upset he didn't play or because of a bigger money offer. And so it's just really not worth it. And so it's kind of like you want NFL quarterbacks in their second contract. And this is almost like what it's become in college basketball. And so I think, there is some value in the high school market, because you can sometimes get guys you wouldn't ordinarily get. USD got a couple guys last year that, they probably, given their record in recent history, probably should have no business being involved with. Now both of them left after 1 year, one of them to USC. And so, it's a weird thing. I mean, I think they got very fortunate in this incoming class. They got 3 guys that they really like. I know Tay Simmons was the guy they really wanted among all the high school recruits, and the other ones were kind of icing on the cake. But I think it's not the end of the world when you don't get high school guys now, because you just go to the portal and go get a portal guy who's going to be older and a proven commodity.
A new world, but an important one, obviously, for San Diego State men's basketball. They've talked at length about the importance of their collective, the Mesa Foundation, and really what role that plays. I mean, again, you can't have enough when it comes to NIL. I mean, you just look at what's played out in the landscape of college basketball, and it's just a huge story now and moving forward as well. Mark, always appreciate it. We're looking forward to it. I mean, 2 weeks and 2 days away. That's hard to believe. San Diego State's regular season opener against UCSD. I know you'll be covering it, and we appreciate you hopping on as always.
Yeah, my pleasure. Talk to you guys.
All right.